and
Cost?
you're probably on mute. If so, sorry, go ahead.
Cost? I mean, how do you determine the cost?
It's an unlimited user license based on the specific FTE for an institution. So, you could reach out and we could get pricing if you're interested through the folks at Ellucian. But that's what the base is off of.
Is this a separate server setup, or does this run on the same Power Campus server?
Michael, you could answer how you do it on your end. If that's
So
all right.
we do have a separate server.
And so do you treat this like as an alternate front end to Power Campus?
Yeah, actually, that brings up an interesting question, because if you participate in e-communities, this is something that came up back in March, I believe, and it was a question posed by one of the institutions, and it came up through the user community from that institution about Power Campus looking a bit dated. And it really sort of came out of the whole thinking that because it isn't browser-based, or at least the client-based portion of it isn't browser-based, that it isn't current. And I did a post that tried to indicate that most any system, including Banner, doesn't answer all questions that a particular institution has. These are generic systems that need to be developed in a variety of different ways. And Argos was the way that we selected to do this, and it's proven to be highly successful here.
So I'm not sure who asked, sorry, this is Carol. I'm not sure who asked the original question around server, but if you give me your name, I can get back to you on that with the recommended setup.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have system requirements we can send, and to echo what Michael's doing, most of the time institutions will set it up on their own server.
Okay, that to me makes sense. So for the person who asked the question, my recommendation is if you're interested, get in touch with your client partner, and they will connect you to all of the people that you need to be with.
By the way, on that subject, we actually were on a VM until about a year ago when we moved to a dedicated server. And I have to say that, first of all, you should know that it's a 32-bit environment, which on the surface you'd question, but in practical terms, it is actually very responsive. We didn't see a big boost in performance when we moved to a dedicated, but it's being used at some very large institutions, some 30,000 plus students. And Brian can speak to that better than I can, but it performs quite well.
Okay, this is Jack again, and I don't mean to be hogging up all the questions, but so will this tie in with Power Fades?
Oh, absolutely.
And then Blackboard is the LMS. Is it limited to Blackboard?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a very open system. We're even hitting our telephone system here. So, as Brian alluded to, it's a site license. You can hit virtually any database that has ODBC connectivity to it. So we're hitting MySQL, SQLite, and different versions of SQL Server. I don't think we're hitting Oracle at this point, but Oracle is pretty much the standard in the Banner environment, so highly used there.
How much internal time and development went into getting to the point where you're at today?
We started in the fall of 2010, and we saw results within 2 weeks, probably about a dozen or so data blocks. The way that they were developed, for the most part, we were the first of the Power Campus sites to go live, and what we did was we shared the environment of Power Campus to the developers back at Visions, and they helped us get familiar with the product itself. So it was sort of a combination, and I think they had some of the pre-built banner data blocks that they migrated down, and then we just tailored. But you can build in very, very short order. It takes very little time to bring this up. And as Brian spoke about the co-op, there are a very large number of data blocks, even for the Power Campus environment, that you could download and, in many cases, just tweak to have them go live.
Any other questions? Please don't feel like you're hogging the time, Jeff. I mean, it's great to get the questions out as well.
I've got a question. This is Christopher Coots. I was curious about, you were saying that you tied it in with your phone system. What kind of phone system are you guys using?
ShoreTel.
That's exactly what we use.
Okay. So this is reading real time out of ShoreTel. So we can get detail. We can get the breakdown by the different port type and each switch. You look by phone type to the IP phones, and we still have some analog. You can also look by model of IP phone or analog.
I like that.
So this probably took about 2 to 3 hours to build.
Can you just show the editing of a simple data block?
Sure.
I'm just curious the component that looks it up.
So, going to one that's fairly robust. This is editor mode. So looking at the main menu, there was the original menu, count balances, detail, and so on. And I spoke about multi-column. This is a list box, so we can go into the visual editor. If you are familiar with Access, there's a lot of similarity in the sense that it's a graphical design, so there's a lot of similarity in that respect. This is only showing one table, which actually is a view. So you can go at views, and by the way, you can point directly to Vista views as well as your own developed views. And next, if I go back to looking at a OLAP, this is an OLAP. And this is the screen behind that is the source of the data. And you just step through this. And it wants to validate, after you walk through it, wants to validate that you've developed it properly. If there's any issues, you would know at that point as far as the query or what was behind it. So here's where you would set up the rows and the columns. So you can see it's all fairly straightforward. It doesn't take a long time and effort to learn this, but to get to Angela's level, well, first of all, she's unique, but you know, I have to say that teaching somebody to use this, if they're somewhat technical, it's not a big effort. And I've been at this 35 years. I started out developing in DBase, went to Foxborough, did some Visual Basic. Did a lot of work in Access. This to me is a pleasure to work with. I love developing in Argos. I am a VP, and so I oversee all the technology on campus, but of all the things I love to do, this is the greatest.
Thank you. And so you can just copy your SQL code from other areas. If you already have things developed and you want to just move them into this, you can just copy and paste it too, right?
You got it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So here's the example. All I do is copy, close, cancel, form. There it is. Everything, including the where statement, any sort of sorting or ordering, and that's that. And so this screen would work. All we need is a button to move to it and a button to move away from it. That easy.
And then how are your end users actually accessing this? Through Ellucian's portal, through a web card in there, through another
Through this
SharePoint?
For the most part, our users do have access to this interface. Now, both Angel and I are system admins, so we have the complete view. If you notice that when I showed you this particular data block, if I click on this, now I'm able to see by user what they really have access to. In other words, yeah, they can actually, we control what they can see and what they can't see. And that's very simple to do. We can do it at the folder level, or we can do it right at this level. And so all I need to do is go into security, and then in here I could either add by group or individual.
And so do you have a web part in SharePoint or something on Blackboard where the user clicks to get to this interface, or?
It's an icon on the desktop. It's just labeled Argos, and it takes them right in.
Okay.
Hey, this is Jack. One more question. Who do I need to contact for a follow-up? I'd like to have a little bit more in-depth look.
I would advise at this moment your client partner, just because they will know who to call in.
That'd be Ellucian?
Yeah, your Ellucian client partner.
Okay. Great demo.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
One last comment. I didn't get into some of the favorite data blocks or apps, and they pertain to some of the things around trending, alerts, and some automation and so on. And the reason I did it is twofold. I guess one in part has to do with our trending isn't quite happening enrollment-wise the way that we want to see it. We are in the Northeast. We're actually in the Buffalo region. There's 21 schools that we compete with, all in a 20-mile radius. And so the competition is fierce. We're dealing with some very big schools. So everybody's feeding from the same trough at the same point. And so we're not quite seeing the numbers. That, in part, is one of the reasons why I'm not demoing that activity. But I also have to follow up by saying that it is Argos that's made a difference to allow us to reduce that number, to boost the enrollment. Because we do have some tools that we have at our disposal to help us identify, in particular, returning, but also applicants, to be able to zero in and act to try to get them enrolled.
We have 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, if anybody has anything further, please feel free to email me, carol.dandary@elucian.com, and I will get answers for you. I just want to confirm, Michael, we are free to post this from a privacy aspect on our e-communities area?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. And I want to give a huge thank you, lots of appreciation. This was an excellent demo. Brian, your team for thinking it, and Hilbert College, Michael and specifically, thank you for bringing that. It made it real time and it made it accurate data because we all know where that's pulling from. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure the people on the phone do too.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carol. Michael, thanks so much. The demo was awesome, and we really appreciate you taking the time to show it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you, folks, and hopefully we'll talk about this soon in a bigger conference area or through the thread on e-communities. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye now.